Okay, okay, can you see my screen here?
Yep.
Okay, and then all righty. Whoops. All right, that works. Cool. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ian Houck, and I'm a fourth year soy student here at RIT. Today, I will be presenting my capstone project, which I have titled as Athletes for Hire. The name speaks for itself, but during this presentation, I plan to dive more in depth on the origins of this idea and talk about the work I put into this project behind the scenes. But before I dive into the lore of my newly founded business idea, I want to talk about how I came up with this project in the first place. You see, being a student athlete is no joke. And at RIT, the expectation of athletic and academic success is only greater. To the right of this slide, you should be able to see a screenshot of my course schedule with some additional features. I have classes every day except Tuesdays, but even those days are filled with capstone work, wrestling practice, an online college algebra course I'm taking in order to fulfill my required math credits. What you don't see is everything else. And that list includes, but is not limited to, my makeup practice time because I miss practice on Thursdays, my sleep schedule, when I need to eat because I'm a human being at the end of the day, any extracurricular activities I'm involved in, wrestling matches and travel dates, so on and so forth. According to an NCAA report, fewer than 2% of all college students athletes will go on to play at the professional level. For these athletes, it isn't until their senior year where they start to think about whether or not they have what it takes to not just play at a professional level, but to even be given the opportunity to do so. It's late into their careers when they realize they need to find something they're passionate about outside of their sport. This late start to this phase of their life stems from the idea that athletes are typically fully invested into honing their skills and knowing their time as a competitor is limited. As a result, athletes' resumes are not nearly as appealing to employers as non-athletes who utilize what would be their practice time into working a part-time job or two and gaining experience. Similarly, I felt the same. Admittedly, I've struggled throughout the college experience with the balance of both worlds. And even to this day, I still feel as though I'm eons behind my peers when it comes to solidifying that full-time job post-graduation. I saw this study online and questioned the legitimacy of whether or not this was entirely accurate. So I composed an anonymous survey of my own. I asked questions regarding the students' stress levels, their confidence in being able to find employment, what their passions were outside of their sport, what their class times were, and what their cumulative GPAs were at the time. That last question being optional, but those who did answer, it showed the correlation between busy schedules and struggling grades. Additionally, I also found out that 30 different respondents across 5 different Division III NCAA sport teams here at RIT, that out of those 30, 21 of them felt as though sports were hindering their ability of working towards finding that job beyond college graduation. With the enactment of name, image, and likeness rules within the NCAA, along with the emergence of websites like LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, and Indeed, for example, I asked myself this important question. What if there was a website dedicated to hiring preferred athletes who possess a particular set of skills? To elaborate, what if there was a site for employers of companies looking to hire former student athletes across any and all sports? For example, if a former lacrosse player wanted to hire a mechanical engineer who too played lacrosse in college, shouldn't he or she have a platform that makes doing so quick and easy? A website becoming mainstream like this has the potential to ensure athletes from across the world that they may continue to fully invest in getting better in the practice room or on the field, knowing they can find work fairly quickly. Now, I didn't come up with this idea entirely on my own. On January 1st, 2022, a man by the name of David Fallon randomly emailed me to advertise his recently founded business, Wrestlers in Business Network, or WIBN for short. Mr. Fallon was a high school wrestler who was a state champion. He also served in the Marine Corps for 27 years. During the month of January, I worked with Professor Hall towards coming up with an idea for my capstone project. My 2 interests at the time were helping athletes and delving into content creation / media advertisement. I also proposed the idea of doing criminal justice work, but that did not come to fruition. Professor Hall suggested, well, why not do both? So that's exactly what I did. About a month later, on February 4th, I reached out to Mr. Fallon requesting permission to to create a business idea using a similar scope and approach that he did. He even took things a step further and offered to talk one-on-one with me and offer some advice on how I can start my business. This was great for me because I'd never really done any kind of entrepreneurship before, this was really helpful. This meeting took place back in March, and that's what my capstone mainly comprises of. I didn't like reinvent the light bulb or do something as difficult and far-fetched as, say, designing an electric car, for example. No disrespect to anyone who might have. I just don't have the brain capacity to do that. But instead, I took advantage of this assignment to learn the ins and outs of how to start a business from scratch. I've seen lots of videos on social media of people being able to break that 9 to 5 for 30+ year cycle and become financially successful through entrepreneurship. My curiosity is what has led me to this moment in time. Throughout the Capstone project, I've been able to connect with successful business owners, the most prominent of them being Mr. Fallon, create a business idea from scratch, and create a model on how I would go about coding that website, design a business logo, which you saw in the beginning, using programs like Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator, create social media platforms to promote my business, which I plan to continue growing beyond college, create promotional videos and still images showcasing the potential this business has to possible collaborators and sponsors. I read countless books and articles on how to get my name out there in the business industry, and even went as far as connecting with multiple students through Tiger Center who have some experience with coding. One of them, ironically, being my teammate and friend, Ben Doherty. For those of you that don't know, I compete on RIT men's wrestling team. My time frame was all over the place with this project, considering I'm taking 19 credits this semester. But at the end of the day, despite not having much physical evidence to show today, although I plan on bringing most, if not all, my work to the Capstone Symposium, what I am grateful for and what I'm most proud of is I now have a solid concrete idea that has the potential to become something so much greater than anything I could have possibly imagined. And at the end of the day, this is what the School of Individualized Studies at RIT is all about. It's about discovering your purpose and acting upon it. Had it not been for the SOIS Capstone curriculum, I would be the same individual, alive and living in this exact moment. But the only difference is I would be a person who doesn't have a single creative idea in mind. I would be even further behind in life than I already am. So some of my takeaways from this project are as follows. First and foremost, my communication amongst professors certainly could have been better. Look, I was busy. And saying I was busy is no justifiable excuse, but I can assure you that when I am done with school, there will obviously be some newfound free time, now that I would no longer be an athlete, to better communicate with future business partners. My ability to communicate is there. I just need to better act on that in the future, given the time I have. I've learned that creating a business is difficult, but enough persistence and commitment will go a long way. Making sacrifices to find success is the name of the game. And in the world of entrepreneurship, that concept is no different. Now, I now have a blueprint or a foundation to build upon after college, just a sense of direction overall. I've learned that time management is imperative when trying to become an independent business owner. I've learned to not allow others to deter me from my dreams. I proposed this idea a while back to my parents and friends who ended up telling me this would never work out. And for a while, I was convinced that maybe they were right, but eventually came to the realization that they will only be right if I give up. If I stay on track, I can be the answer to many student athletes' mental health issues. My actions could be a huge sigh of relief for them and for future generations of athletes to come. Lastly, during this process, I've come to the conclusion that I am passionate about giving back to the sports community, which has done so much for me. At the end of the day, this idea is the least I could do. And that's really all I had to say. I want to quickly thank Meg, Sydney, and James for their continued support, not just to myself, but for the entire population of SOIS. It is through their leadership, it is through the leadership of these three that I transformed from somebody who was in the School of Film and Animation, not liking what he was doing, depressed, scared, and clueless on what I wanted to do, to a person who now has a sense of direction in life. So in that sense, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And that's all I have.
Want to go first, Meg?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
All right, so Ian, really interesting idea, and I'll say from my perspective, and I can't remember actually if I shared this with you at the beginning of the 101 class, but I spent 7 years as the director of academics and compliance for Purdue University's athletic department, and so I worked with 18 different Division I sports and about 600 student athletes, and I am in complete agreement. I'm very familiar with that schedule that you show. What I would oftentimes say to faculty and staff is that student athletes are basically full-time employees, and then they go to school.
Yeah.
Oh,
even at the Division III level too.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It doesn't matter what the division level is. The time commitment is still the same. So a couple comments. First, I really liked your motivation in finding a solution to a problem that you experienced, but that you recognize. I thought you included a lot of really authentic reflection. So really what you're talking about is establishing a network, not just specifically for wrestling student athletes, but for
all athletes. Yes.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about, we didn't really get into the nuts and the bolts of your business idea or the individual that you connected with, his business idea, but can you talk a little bit about what that network looks like and how you would apply it, to all different kinds of sports and to schools of all different sizes?
Yeah. So my business idea, it would just be a website, just kind of an alternative to say something like LinkedIn. So you know how you log on to LinkedIn, you create your profile, you give this description and stuff, and you allow, and you set up filters on your account to be founded by employers looking to hire. Similarly, I wanted to come up with a similar website design and idea, but I wanted to add filters that more specifically focus on people's athletic resumes instead of just their work resumes. So like for me, when I was younger, my parents said, like, I never worked in high school because my parents made the deal that if I committed myself fully to getting good grades and excelling in my sports, they would cover whatever the cost would be for me not having a job. And so I want kids to be able to, I want there to be a website that basically is like, if you log on and you're an athlete with some sort of athletic success, you will almost be guaranteed to find somebody looking to hire. That's kind of what I'm going for. So the platform of the website, it would just be similar. You create an account. You put, maybe instead of a professional picture of yourself, maybe you put a picture of yourself in a uniform during a game. Or for me, maybe it'd be a picture of me getting my hand raised in a wrestling singlet, whatever it would be. So you create the account, and instead of uploading a work resume, which could be optional, and that, so I talked about that could be like a secondary resume, I guess, thing you could upload. But the primary one would be to upload and talk about, reflect on your athletic journey, talk about your athletic successes, failures, what you've learned from it, and kind of get to know employees, get to know them on that sort of personal level instead of like what you just did, work wise now. Because a lot of kids, it's hard to find jobs now because a lot of jobs are requiring work experience. But when you don't have any work experience, it's pretty freaking hard to find it. So this would just be a different alternative. Like, instead of getting to know somebody based on their job experience, you're learning about the content of their character from a whole different, way of life that is an uncommon path to take. There aren't many athletes in college to begin with. I think wrestlers, statistically speaking, only like 0.1% of all high school wrestlers go on to wrestle in college. So, and I'm sure those stats are very similar for other sports too.
So, and I would definitely add that, I think there are a lot of advantages to hiring a student athlete. I mean, there's a lot that comes with competing at that level, and the intrinsic motivation you need to have, and obviously the time management and all the pieces that maybe, and I think you're talking about this, maybe could be demonstrated in a co-op, but you're demonstrating through making this choice to play at an academic level, at a collegiate level. So how has this other individual's website been used? Do people that are actively looking to hire someone maybe go there first to see if there's someone that aligns with the needs that they have? I'm wondering how you're going to promote this.
Well, so all the people looking to hire are former wrestlers themselves. So in the sport of wrestling, and this, I played multiple sports in high school as a 3-sport athlete. So I noticed there's a common thread amongst all sports, despite them being vastly different. One similarity they all share is that there is always going to be a sense of camaraderie within that sports community. So like in wrestling, for instance, it's a very niche community, but everybody knows of each other. So in high school wrestling, like everybody knew who everybody was, and, everybody knew all the coaches knew most of the athletes. So there's that sort of camaraderie. So this website kind of is the internet form of that. So you have all these business owners who were once wrestlers, who have had previous wrestling experience, and they know how hard of workers wrestlers are. So they're like, so they go on the website looking to hire wrestlers who fill that position that that they're looking for, but at the same time that have that wrestling experience. So when an employer goes on that particular website, on Mr. Fallon's website, WIBN, every person who's logged into that was a former wrestler themselves. So right away they know that, all right, this kid ticks off the job description, what job they're looking for, that checkbox. They were a wrestler. What's not there to like. So it's just a more specific niche, I guess, website that makes it easier to like find people of similar interests, I guess. And that's kind
You'll
of
hear about it through word of mouth, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how do you, is it for the greater good, or do you monetize it? Does he monetize it somehow?
Right now, he started it he started back in July of 2020. So he's not at the stage right now where it's ready to be monetized, but in the future, if it does blow up, the only issue that I proposed to him is that wrestling is such a niche community. I doubt it's going to blow up at the magnitude that, these other websites, these other job search websites have. So that's why I wanted to branch off and create a similar platform, but instead it being catered to all athletes.
Okay.
Because there are just more athletes. There's more people to choose from. So.
All right.
More traffic.
Good job, Ian.
Thank you.
So Ian, this really does sound like, we get a lot of, in this course, we get a lot of students who have business ideas, and they use the Capstone course to develop plans. And some of them seem to be, some of those plans or some of those ideas seem to be more viable or have more potential than others. But I really see the potential for this. So basically what you're doing is you're bringing together people who have similar backgrounds, different ages, but similar backgrounds, one being the employer and one being the person who would like to be the employee. So I think that sounds like a match, perhaps not made in heaven, but in that sort of analogy. I'm curious as to why this guy that you talked to was willing to help you basically become a competitor. I mean, how did that happen?
Because he's a wrestler.
That's just it. You wouldn't understand it unless you lived through it yourself. Wrestlers are so willing to help each other, even if helping that person means that they will one day surpass you. It's kind of like how the old saying goes, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. So there's always going to be a newfound mutual respect between wrestlers. So I proposed this idea because I remember I randomly got this email in my inbox. It was like, looking for wrestlers to hire. I was like, whoa, this is a cool idea. And then I proposed it to Professor Hall. And then, I just figured, he's probably won't even answer my email. And he did. So he didn't have to respond to my email, but he was willing to help me. Why that is, maybe he wants to be a collaborator. Maybe if I do get this business idea copyrighted and patented, maybe he would ask for a percentage of future shares. Who knows? But
right.
Yeah.
When you suggested to him, as you presumably did, that you wanted to go beyond just the wrestling community and expand it to all college sports, what was his reaction to that? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer that that's what you would do, but what did he say when you said that?
He said he thought it could work. It's going to be difficult kind of keeping all different athletes and all different sports sort of categorized. But I think there's a way you can make the website filtered. So if you create an account and you put yourself as a wrestler, you can be put into like the wrestling portion of the site. There could be like sub websites that you could go to where it's like wrestlers, or if you want or if you're a former basketball player looking to hire a basketball player, like, I don't know. I think it's easier to filter it out than it seems. But
so I'm not even sure that you would need to do that, at least not to the 100% accuracy point of view. I mean, maybe if somebody is, I mean, you said yourself, and many students engage in multiple sports. So, you know, maybe what the employer is looking for, having a sports background themselves, is somebody who plays college sports. They don't care whether it's wrestling or football or soccer or whatever.
And that option could be open too. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think you want to limit it. The other way I wouldn't limit it, and you mentioned this in your presentation, is that, you know, if somebody does have work experience, and which presumably many people do, then I definitely don't think you want to exclude that. I mean, you want to include that too. I mean, why would you?
No, but yeah, no, definitely not excluded. But that should be like that shouldn't be the main focus. Like all these websites, they just want to know your resume. That's it. They just want to know your work experience. This website alternatively would prioritize athletic performance and background, with that being the secondary aspect.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the point of it. I agree, but good. I think this is a really viable idea. I mean, obviously,
I hope so. This is gonna be cool.
You're going to start small, right? I mean, because it's going to have to be word of mouth to begin with, but I could see it really taking off. Do you have web building skills yourself?
No, but there's a beautiful thing called the internet. So I've been trying to do some research. I'm not too keen into coding, which is why I have friends I could ask to like give me some advice. But I'm sure if I continue beyond college talking to, I guess, business owners and entrepreneurs, if I present this idea, I'm sure I could, through word of mouth, encounter people that would be willing to help me create a website. My mother actually has experience with running a business online too. She used to run a business called Baby Goodies way back when I was young. And somebody bought that for, I think, $300,000.
Nice.
Which was a lot back then because the internet was fairly new, but I could ask her for some advice too on website building and advertisements and stuff. So the resources are there. I just had to take advantage of them.
Okay, well, I think you're well on your way with an excellent idea. So lots of luck. I think you're going to be successful. Anyway, if there are no other questions, let's move on to Alex.
All right, sounds good. Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Here, let me stop sharing my screen real quick. Sorry. Okay.
All right, so I'm just going to share my screen now.
Alex, is there any way you can turn your volume up a little bit?
I don't know what microphone is being used. Do I sound better now?
That's a little louder, yeah.
I think I'm using this microphone. Okay. So we can see the presentation?
Yep.
All right. So today I'm presenting on my DIY augmented reality headset kit that I've been developing for the past 3 months. So firstly, who am I and what's my mission? Like, why am I here? So I'm a software engineer. I've been one since early high school, but I switched in my later years to human-centered computing because I wanted something more creative and fulfilling. I found that that wasn't really my calling, and I finally settled into SOIS as a student studying lifestyle technology. And so what lifestyle technology is technology that makes your life easier. Things like a smartwatch or augmented reality, for example. And so one of my passions is teaching and education as well. And knowing that these concepts like programming and augmented reality and microelectronics are hard to learn and they're daunting, I would like to be able to make that process easier for people by teaching them and educating on that subject. So how did I get involved with augmented reality in the first place? So once upon a time, Vuzix, a augmented reality manufacturer based out of Rochester, was at the career fair, and they were presenting on their products and their technologies, and I scored an interview. I went through the whole process. I got to tour their facility. I met some really cool people on their team, and they were like, "When can you start?" And I told them not until after I graduate. And that was kind of it for them. They didn't extend the offer out beyond that. And it kind of just left me yearning for more. So that's why I'm here doing it myself. So yeah. So let me just tell you, like, what is AR? So AR is a pretty broad term. Augmented reality is a computer-generated approach to enhancing your reality. And unlike full immersion VR, augmented reality incorporates a sense of being present while also enhancing or adding to your reality. And typically when we think of AR, we think of the software side and computer vision enhancing our visual field. But AR can also include things like prosthetics and haptic feedback and things like that. So, but for the purposes of our presentation, I'm going to show you just the software side, and that's what I'm focusing on today. So augmented reality also consists of a software component and a hardware component. Typically, the software component is called photogrammetry. And a very abstract view of photogrammetry is extracting features out of the environment, labeling them, and then putting them into the 3D space around you. And then when you can do that, when you do that, then you have this space that you can augment onto. You can add 3D elements in front of you. You can detect faces and people and all sorts of things. So the first method is called BRISC. BRISC is short for binary, robust, invariant scale key points. Now that's kind of a mouthful, but if you break it down, it makes a lot of sense. Key points, the last letter, stands for like key points, features in the image, things that are unique that make the image detectable. You feed in a target image to the algorithm, and what it will do is it will point out like T-junctions, points where contrast goes from low to high, edges, things like that, things that make the object what it is. It then accounts for scale. So let me just bring out a quick little prop for a sec. So if I'm trying to detect this ruler, right, in a computer vision application, these two black dots on the end might be considered features that make the ruler what it is. And when I move the ruler and scale it, to you, it looks like those features are even closer. So the algorithm has to do an invariant scale operation. It has to say, these two features relate to each other, but the distance doesn't matter. And then finally, the binary robust part, it just labels the features so that you can use them later. So that's like you get the markers out of the space and then you can do something with them. That's what BRISC is. And then the second thing is SLAM. SLAM is simultaneous localization and mapping. So the mapping part is extracting the features, but the simultaneous localization part is incorporating data from sensors like gyroscopes and accelerometers. So when you have that data and the marker data, you can actually construct a 3D space around you. And so I'll go into more detail about marker versus non-marker in a second, and I'll show you a visual example. But those are just the modern popular approaches to the software portion. Next, the hardware portion is something that the image gets displayed onto. So after the image processing is done, something needs to be displayed on something so that you can see it, whether it be your eye, a piece of glass, or whatever. So the first approach that's very popular is called a waveguide. Now, a waveguide is just a lens that has a small, tightly packed array of ridges. And it can look just like a normal glasses lens, but there'll be very, very small ridges that will take projected light and bounce them back into your eye. So you need to have a little projector attached that reflects and then bounces back into your eye. That's what a waveguide is. The next approach is holographic, and that's what the HoloLens does. It's very similar to waveguides, but it's layered. There are many waveguides layered on top of each other to create sort of a depth. And then finally, what my approach incorporates is a HUD. So a heads-up display is just a screen that reflects onto a mirrored lens. So as you can see, it gets complicated. And and there are a lot of key components. So here's the non-marker versus marker example. I created an app for an interview once. This is the marker example. I created a little smartwatch for my 3D printer, and then I put on an image of a moon. And so that image acts as a marker. And when you slide that little dial around, it exposes different areas of that marker. And so I can, slide it around and display all these different things on my wrist. So that just requires an image and some sort of recognition. Remember, like the key points and extracting features. That's what the Brisk algorithm does. The SLAM algorithm incorporates sensor data like GPS or accelerometers, and apps like Pokemon Go use a non-marker approach where they detect where you are in space, they find the ground plane, and then they project something like a Pikachu in front of you, and then you can collect it or something. So that's kind of like a visual example of the difference between the two. And like I said earlier, the problems I see, the first one is that augmented reality is really complex. There are so many little elements that you need to know, and orchestrating the whole thing is no easy task. Also, the programming libraries that are out there right now that make the process, quote unquote, easier are actually not really that easy to understand. You kind of have to be like a mathematician or an artificial intelligence expert to just understand what's happening. Luckily, there are like some programs that you can use that make it very easy, but they're limited. So the next thing that you would probably want to do is buy a device that a company already made, right? So that's where the next problem comes in. Devices like the Vuzix Blade, the HoloLens 2, and the Magic Leap devices, they cost upwards to $5,000. So you're not going to see me buying one of those anytime soon. And then finally, there's this idea of fantasy and the metaverse and all of these things, right? So while that has its niche in virtual reality and gaming, the metaverse isn't something that we want to bring into augmented reality. We want to enhance our lifestyle. And the average person isn't casting spells and catching Pokemon and all these things. Like they want a piece of hardware that can display their messages or maybe give you directions when you're on the street or something like that. So that's a bit more practical. And so I guess now my solution is a DIY solution, and it's a bit more personalized. And so what it's going to do is it's going to avoid the complexities of the software and the hardware. It's going to be very cheap. I spent a little under $500 on everything, including multiple different combinations of devices. And it's going to provide a slew of resources and documentation and video to help a user put this whole thing together. And like I said, it's a very personalized thing. There's no vendor lock-in. You don't need to buy a device and then get, restricted to some company's platform. It's all open source. So here is the first render and the most recent render. So the first one on the side, I wanted to mirror two VR displays onto a screen. But I found out quickly that a curved screen is actually going to warp. It's going to act like a telescope, and it's going to warp the image, and you're not going to be able to see any details. So that just didn't work, and I had to throw away a bunch of lenses. Eventually, I went with this final design, which has a flat screen here. Here's a 3D construction of the whole thing. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the screen portion right here. This is the controller board, and this is just a casing for the screens. This part goes around your head, and this is the screen right here. The screens just went in, controller board, they just got connected together. Then the lens is angled and finally connected to the entire headset. So that's what the actual final prototype looks like. And so let's examine what it's made out of, and let's take a look at all the different approaches I took to get where I am and get a working product. So first, I'm actually going to go with the Coral Mini here on the bottom. But first of all of these combinations of hardware incorporate this screen and adapter, which is what you see above. So the first combination I have is the Coral Dev Mini and the screens. Now, when I did research initially, the Google page said that it was compatible with like higher resolutions. You could use Windows with it, and it was just kind of like a plug and play device. And you could download all these models and run all these programs, and it would be perfect, right? It turns out, after reaching out to the Google team, speaking on some forums, talking to manufacturers of the device, it turns out that all of that was just like false. It was all false, and it just didn't work. So I ended up spending all this money, and I put that device off to the side, and it just didn't work. The next thing I did was I took out a Raspberry Pi 4. So the Raspberry Pi is another single board computer that's extremely user-friendly. It takes about 5 minutes to set up, has a ton of programs on it, lots of ports for displays and cameras and USB. You can even plug in headphones. This device is perfect for setting up all of the software and plugging directly into the screens. However, one downside is that it's extremely slow. And that's what the Coral board was meant to be. The Coral board had this insane processing power and could compute these models at like 100 frames per second, which is a lot. But it didn't end up working. So I went with the Raspberry Pi. I got significantly less performance, but the complexity was far less. And then finally, just the screens alone with an HDMI cable plugged into your computer with no external hardware whatsoever, no Coral board, no Raspberry Pi. That is actually it's the lightest, it's the easiest, it's the cheapest, and it leverages your desktop or laptop's hardware. So you plug it in and you get all the functionality of your regular computer on the viewer. And so finally, all the way on the right side is the Arduino Portenda X8, and that's coming out soon. And it's just like the Coral board, but it has a couple of different features. And so I plan to incorporate the screens with this chip as well, and compare all of these models and continue developing on them and experimenting with them in the future. So here's a software demo I wrote that runs on all of these boards.
Alex, are you almost done? Because we're going over time in a minute.
How many more minutes do I have left?
Well, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay. Sure. So I'm not going to do the physical demo. I have it back here, but basically I have the, the hand gesture technology here, and it maps to a mouse, and you can even click with your finger by going like this. So, I was going to do this next portion with a sort of teleprompter. I was going to put the device on and flip through these slides with my finger and read it to you. But it takes about a couple minutes to like set up and do all that kind of stuff. So
you can do that at the symposium.
Exactly. You guys will see it. And I'll have other stuff too. I'll have other programs. But in the end, moving forward, I'm creating this personalized augmented reality approach, very customizable, extremely cheap. And what I want to do is I really want to learn more about waveguides, the small screens with the reflective edges, because what that does is it increases resolution, it reduces eye strain, and it just cuts the size down altogether. It is the modern cutting edge approach to augmented reality today, and a lot of technologies use it. So I want to learn more about it, and I want to get my hands on these devices and trying them, So with that being said, I do want to just cut down the size of the whole project altogether. It is pretty large. It juts out about this far on my face. So I'll reduce the printing sizes. I'll get smaller screens, check out the waveguides. Also, I want to increase computing power. Right now, the Raspberry Pi combination of hardware, it works, but it's very slow. So I am limited to my computer's hardware right now if I want to get any sort of performance. So I do want to increase the computing power. I do want to try the new Arduino device that's coming out, and I do want to keep experimenting with new technologies. Also, I'm on the brink of getting that Coral board to work. The first chip that I bought, I'm on so close to getting it to work. So I'm going to keep hammering away at that. And then finally, I submitted a short form version of this presentation to the Tiger Tank people, and they sent me through to their final round, and hopefully they give me funding, and hopefully they give me a direction, or maybe some people or a community of people that are just as passionate about it as I am, so that we can develop this technology further and have something that's, usable. And that comes with building that community. So yeah, with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in, and you will see the device at the symposium, and hopefully you're impressed, and I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Alex.
Cool.
So as a completely naive member of the audience,
Mhm.
I have basically one question. You
Yes.
said at the beginning that your purpose is to enhance the lifestyle of the user, right?
Right. Yep.
That's the point.
Mhm.
So taking me as an example, and I would imagine that there are more people like me than there are like you as far as this technology is concerned.
Right.
How is this going to enhance my lifestyle?
Yeah, of course. So one of the things I mentioned, it was very brief, was messaging. So the reason why people buy smartwatches today is so that they can quickly look at their wrist and gather information that they could normally get on their phone. You know,
Right.
it's a very quick and dirty way to get the time, read your messages, see other information, right? So the glasses also provide that and additional features. So, you know, you get you get like a HUD in front of your face with information. You don't need to pull out your phone. You don't need to like stare at a screen or like, unlock a password or anything. It's all right there in your face. Um, Also, you can wear this device when you're like looking for directions. It can show you in the space in front of you where exactly to walk or where a certain shop is in a very crowded, like busy area.
Or where my car is parked.
Exactly. And also, this is a no, like I'm serious. Like it could show you that. So this is a night vision camera that I got for the Raspberry Pi device, one of the hardware combinations that I had. And like I said, it has night vision. Right? So if I'm going outside or I'm looking for something in the house and I don't want to wake people up with all the lights, I can just pop the device on and then see the world in front of me, but obviously in the dark. So that like there are just tons of different like areas. Like I could just go on and on with the use cases.
I see. So it sounds to me like you're going to continue to develop this
Yes.
expertise that you've started. I
Absolutely.
guess one of my very frequent questions is, you came to this with a lot of basic knowledge and a lot of preparatory knowledge. So what do you now know that you didn't know 10 weeks ago?
Yeah. So my first notion about augmented reality was you could just reflect a display into your eyes off a piece of glass or something, right? I took a lens that I had in my room and I angled my phone and I looked through it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like that works. And then when I finally started building my prototype, I realized that there are so many factors that go into like how you see the world. I'm taking a perception class right now, and it's revealed a lot of information about image and object processing. When you focus in on an object in the distance, your eyes are gonna adjust to that distance. And then when you have a screen in front of your face, you're gonna kind of go cross-eyed. So there's this like eye strain, you're going back and forth. And that was one of the problems that I came up with, or that I came across and I learned about. And that's where, I sort of started to learn about waveguides and the different technologies of projecting light into your eye. And I started studying like how those optics, actually operate. And they're extremely complicated, but it's a cutting edge. It's a developing field. So, as time goes on, more resources come out, more papers come out, and, you got to read through them. And a lot of the times academic papers are hard to understand. So I learned about the methods. I also learned about the object detection, like algorithms, like the machine learning algorithms. Any computer vision approach has to do with some sort of like downsampling of what the camera sees. So the camera will take in an image and then it'll like downsample it and then extract little features. So I learned about like the steps and the convolutional operations and extracting these features and performing like gradient descent analysis on like an image itself. So I did a lot of like machine learning research as well. I found out exactly how these algorithms perform and why you need such beefy hardware to run them. I also learned how to do CAD modeling. I ended up buying a 3D printer very early on in the semester just to experiment with, and then it kind of turned out to be my main tool for putting this thing together. I learned how to like design models, like account for different like thicknesses and like fitting ratios and strength and all that kind of stuff. So it's just there's a huge broad range of topics and areas and domains that I learned about.
Very, very cool. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
you said at the beginning, not to hog the question time, but I think you said at the beginning that you like to be you like the notion of teaching. So
Yes.
are you going to go into graduate school?
Um, at the moment, I don't have any plans to go to graduate school, but I do like the idea, like I said, of creating content that is easily consumable. And, if I know how to teach the subjects, that means I just like know the topics better. And it helps
Sure.
me understand and it helps other people understand.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
And then it kind of cycles back into the community thing. So if I can build this community of like-minded people who also want to develop this headset with me, the expansion will be exponential. There will be so many people adding to this project that instead of having a clunky large prototype, we have something that's small and fast and sleek and all that.
Okay, thanks very much. I really enjoyed that. Meg?
Yeah, so Alex, you and I need to talk about potentially gap year funding. You're a finalist for Tiger Tank.
Yes.
Can't tell if you're thinking about creating like a campus-wide project team or if you're thinking about commercializing something.
Yeah. So that's a good point. And that's what I thought of when I was asked about the the graduate school thing. So do I want to come back to school and do I want to join the like the Frameless Labs here? Do I want to start a research like group? I don't really know exactly what I want to do, but I do want to kind of create a sort of like organization where people are just there developing. If you know about the Raspberry Pi Foundation, it's just a place where people can come to and develop for this really tiny board, create programs and Internet of Things devices and all sorts of things. So I kind of want to create my own like foundation for AR that is not specific to a company and is completely open source. So whether that is through the master's program or researching more at RIT or just making my own business, I like all of those sound extremely tempting. So I don't really know where I'm going to go with this quite yet.
Okay, well, you and I aren't done talking about it for sure. So
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to bug you about it and talk to you about funding and thinking about ways that we can think a little bit differently about how we funded gap year fellows previously. So students that have a business idea that doesn't necessarily have to be commercialized, but just be built out. So you and I'll talk.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mostly just the initial research costs. Like I've spent most of the money that I've spent, and that's it. Like,
yeah,
I'll buy one new thing every couple of months probably. But anyway.
Great. Well, really nice job, and I look forward to further conversations. So, okay, well, awesome. We'll make sure that we give Diego enough time. So, Diego, you're up.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Let me just share my screen. All right, can you guys see it?
We can.
All right, perfect. There we go. All right. So welcome everybody. My name is Diego Porres, and I'm here to present you guys Focal Point, which is this task managing application that I've been working on for the duration of the semester so far, and hopefully gonna make a couple improvements before the symposium so that you can get a full experience. So I bet all of you guys are wondering what is Focal Point, and the way that I explain it is that it's a task managing application with a twist. So let me go into a little bit more detail about what that is. Basically, Focal Point is this task managing application that I want to get people incentivized to using it a little bit more. My dog is attacking me, I'm sorry. But as I was saying, it's this task managing application that basically incentivizes its users to complete tasks and to go out there and do the things that they normally do through this point system that they will be later on capable of redeeming in store, like different themes and different like animations that you can unlock just by doing your day-to-day tasks. So let me talk about a little bit where the inspiration for this application came from. And that goes back to, I think, my third year here at RIT. I was in one of my programming classes, and basically we were starting mobile app development 1, and they were tasking us with building an application for the final. In that application, I built a simpler task managing application, and kind of got the inspiration there of, okay, like you have all of these task managing applications, but how many of them are truly successful for what they do? Like how many of them truly get consistent reuse and reapplication, if that makes any sense? Like, how do I get somebody to continue to come back more and more and more? And that's where I kind of bridged this idea that, hey, like I myself like playing video games. And I like the idea of like getting rewards in these video games and having little upgrades, if that makes any sense. So by kind of merging that, both of those ideas together, I came up with the idea for Focal Point, which would incorporate that point system with the task managing application portion of it, and just hopefully incentivize the user to like continue coming back and forth. So these are some basic wireframes that I kind of set up for the application. In here you can get a good picture of what the application would do. Over on the left side, we have the main task managing portion of it, or the main page, I would say. It would be very minimalistic, very basic, 4 buttons to begin with. One for everything that you would be doing, one for the task, another for the calendar, another would allow you to access the store, and then just basic settings for whether you're going to log into the application or not. In the task managing side of the things, can I get 1 second? I'm so sorry. Get in your face. Go.
Good move.
I apologize for that. All right, so in the main task page, you'll have this little calendar type of aspect on the top portion of it. If you can see my mouse, it would be right up here where you're capable of seeing the date that you're currently on. Now, in this wireframe, it doesn't show it, but I do hope to add the month so you can be aware of what month you're in and you're not just looking at a random set of numbers. But the bottom portion is going to be somewhat similar, where it'll tell you the time. This time can vary from like it just being at a set time you want an alarm to kick off, or you have something that you want to get done at that time. Or it could be like a range of numbers from like, let's say I want to get my workout done from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. You can add that range, and it'll be showcased here over in this time section. Next to the time section, you have the actual description of the task. And here it's kind of straightforward, where it'll be like, all right, at 8 a.m. I'm going to take out the dog. 12 p.m. I'll prepare for my interview. 7 p.m. I'm going to start to prep dinner. And as you complete these tasks, you can go in here and just kind of check them off. And as you check them off, you gain the point systems, which will allow you to redeem at the in-store for the application. Here you get like a basic understanding of what that is. Like this is kind of like a Christmas theme. So like if you were to buy this theme, it would just make the whole application look Christmas-like. Maybe when you get an application completed, it'll have some like jingle bells like playing in the background, and maybe some snow will fall. So it's kind of incorporating all of these different like just satisfactory like parts to the application that kind of make you want to be like, okay, like I want to continue to like get tasks in order to get this like confetti theme that whenever I complete a task, like a poof of confetti pops up. And that's kind of like the point system aspect of it. The other two are just showcasing like the settings, and here you'll be able to like log in. I hope to be able to make this something kind of universal so that like if you're on different devices, you can just use the same account to like maintain all of the things that you're going, and just have all of it in one place. It'll also allow you to change themes and change basic animations for your application as you go. And then the calendar, it'll be the same thing as the task page, just with the monthly calendar, where you'll have your designated month at the top. And then if you click one of these little boxes, it'll pop up the different task instead of having it in this kind of view. These are just a couple of coding examples from the project itself that I've been working on. On the left is the initial build that I kind of made for it. And it just has like a little taskbar at the top with your user, and then it just says a home screen, because it was just, I was trying to get an understanding for what Flutter is and how it worked. If I didn't explain it, Flutter is the library that I'm using to go about and create this application. It allows for easy development of like mobile applications, both for Android and iOS, as well as web development. So I could just get all of the three done with one simple framework here. And that's basically why I decided to go ahead with this one. On the right side, I have a little bit more of an in-depth look at what the application will look like in terms of its coding background. It includes the app bar that is being built in like this area here, but also incorporates more of like what the page will end up looking like, at least for the home page. I'm still working on the other pages, so they haven't been fully showcased in this presentation, but I'm hoping that by the symposium I'll have like a well-rounded application to show everybody. But with that being said, this is left and that's right, and then this is what the left side was in the previous slide, and what it's currently looking like on the new slide. In here, we're expanding upon this understanding of like accounts, where at the top it'll say hello and then the specified user. So like, Stephen, if you're using this task managing application, it'll say hello Stephen or hello Meg, and you can incorporate a picture of yourselves on there, just so you can have your pretty face looking at yourselves as you go about and complete your tasks. Clicking these task buttons, or these different buttons themselves, will bring you to the different pages. And as you might notice, something that's different from here and the wireframe aspect that I decided to like switch upon as I was going about it, is that I incorporated this bottom navigation bar here. This will allow you to easily get back to like the home page, which is this main site that you're seeing here. But it also incorporates the ability to add a task from almost any location that you're in within the application itself. And it just allows you to easily get to the settings page from anywhere in the application itself, just kind of streamlining all of those things into like one separate location. So now I will talk about some of the difficulties that I came across while making this application. A lot of the issues came from programming itself. as you're learning new things, you're always going to come across different roadblocks. And one of them was Flutter itself. I didn't really fully understand it at the beginning. So it took a lot of different YouTube tutorials and different, different like blog posts and online posts in order to fully get an understanding of how to make everything and put it into the shapes that I wanted it to. I remember that the first time that I went into the application and I was trying to like make that simple three bubble button layout, it didn't work properly. Either all the buttons would be like jumbled on top of themselves, or they'd all be on one side instead of going in the right directions. It just, wrapping my head around how to properly lay everything out was difficult, but it has also been something that I've enjoyed doing as I've gone through it, because it's just, puzzles are great, and this is kind of like a big major puzzle, and putting it all together has been a very, I want to say, productive and fulfilling experience within itself. Another difficulty that I've experienced is that I've had some time issues. I know that I kind of got it started on it a little bit late. I was kind of juggling how to get started with it, where to go, and a lot of those things came from lack of time management and just feeling overwhelmed this entire semester, because I did pack on a bunch of different courses at the beginning of the semester, and some of the courses were a lot more difficult than I would have expected them to be, slash took up a bunch of extra time outside of just the regular in-class time. But at the end of the day, I managed to kind of get everything going. I'm happy with what I've currently got and where development is going. And I see the potential for this being taken on further than just this semester, working on it further and actually trying to develop an application that could be used by hundreds, if not thousands, of different people. And that would be a nice little fulfilling end to the story. But with that being said, before the symposium, I hope to have more of the pages working so that you guys can actually go in there and click on the different buttons and have the different things pop up. I'll try to get some animations going so that when you actually complete the tasks, you'll get a nice little endorphin blast, I'll call it, of just, hey, I completed a task. So yeah, without anything else to say, I leave the room open for your questions.
So thank you,
I'll
Diego.
jump in.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. So I'll jump in right away. I really like that you've taken the same, ideas or motivation that you find in gaming and tried to make it productive for us. So I think that'll be really interesting to see. I'll say, I watch my 14-year-old who doesn't play Fortnite anymore, but used to play it all the time and was so, motivated and persistent about buying new skins. And Stevens, you probably aren't familiar, but it's like basically having whatever character you are in a game, get a new outfit, new gear, and new whatever. And so, I think your idea behind, motivating us to check off tasks by getting additional stuff is probably going to be pretty motivating for people. And it's almost like the competitive, hey, I got the holiday, attachment because I, got so much done. I might even actually add things that I've already just so I can check them off. But I guess my question, since this is just a lot of commentary, is, what would be your next step then? And is this something you're making for iOS as well as Android?
Yeah, so in the presentation, it depicted the Android phone itself. But that's just because I got part of it was got lazy behind like fully making sure that I got all of the little nooks and crannies on my MacBook set up. But as soon as I'm done with the semester and have more time to like just like divulge on this, I plan to get that iOS portion of it. But just through the platform itself, through using the Flutter framework, you're able to port that code onto both Android and iOS. So imagine this screen on the right is basically what it'll look like for the apps themselves, not just that. So it'll be on both,
Okay.
and hopefully on web as well. So like, let's say you can't reach your phone for whatever reason, or it's dead, and you have to get your task finished or done by the time that you said that you would, you can hop online and just click it off from there.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so what's next for this application?
What's next? I'm planning to get the different task pages done so you can actually add tasks to the application. And by doing that, I hope to connect both the calendar and the tasks itself. Lastly, I would like to add a little store page so that you can see that, and then maybe like 1 or 2 themes or 1 like animation so that you can go in and like change the whole look of the app. The way I see it is in the future, I plan to have everything just be like changed, and holiday themes, like Halloween themes, like anything that you can basically think of, just try to make something revolving around those times and just have it incorporated into the application itself.
Okay,
Quick question.
thank you. I enjoyed that. I'll pass it over to Stephen now.
Hi, Diego. So, so it's not a revelation to say that everybody's different, and so some people they don't have a problem going about their daily tasks. I mean, it's not a problem. That's what they do, and so they wouldn't need this. But then on the other opposite extreme, it would be my stepson, who was totally disorganized as he was going through school. So arguably, he would be you know, your audience, your potential audience. But so I get that the theory behind what you've done here is that you're motivating people to do what they might not do, what they want to do, what they intend to do, but what they might not get to, you're adding a motivational factor. Yep. So, you know, I see the issue there of making that sustainable. Let's say that you do get somebody gets your app and they, you know, they're captivated by the reward system and et cetera, but after a week or 2 weeks, okay, this is not novel anymore. It's not doing anything for me. So I think that would be your problem, to make it sustainable, right? I mean, I can see how people would like it to begin with, but the point is to have people keep, you know, continue with it, I assume. So, you know, as you think about taking this further in the future, I think you need to think about how to make it sustainable. And, you know, you've got a set number of rewards right now. So expanding that, making it more complex or whatever, how you would do it, I don't know. But I think that's probably something that you might want to think about. Okay. But I love the idea. You did a great job explaining it, and I'm glad that you're going to continue with it. Which is you know, not everybody continues with their project from Capstone, but we're always very happy that people really did got into it, and they didn't have enough time to finish it, and they're taking it further forward. So that's great. I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So, Diego, you said you were trying to incorporate the tasks and the calendar, right?
Yeah.
So, and you just started using Flutter this semester?
Yes.
So do you have any ideas of how you're going to do the task and calendar mixing?
So the way that I see it is that I'll probably make a calendar like class, basically. Like you said that you mentioned you were software engineering.
Yeah, I have some experience with Flutter.
So I'll probably make like a sort of class or data structure for the calendar itself, and have that be globally accessible in some way or another. And then when you add a task, basically like add it to the specific day within the time frame or something
gotcha.
along those lines.
Yeah, that sounds like a good approach. If I were to give you one recommendation, have you ever heard of providers?
I have not.
So when I was doing Flutter development, a simple way to give subclasses or child classes data from somewhere else is by using a provider. So just give that a look. Essentially what you'll do is you'll have like a task class and a calendar class, and then you put both of those inside of the provider, and the provider literally just provides the data. So
Okay.
I would recommend looking into that. It made things a lot easier. It made the flow of the app and just of content like so much easier to manage. So hope that
Awesome.
helps. Yeah.
Of course. I appreciate any kind of help that I can get.
Awesome. Cool.
You'll
Thanks,
have
Alex.
to track Alex down, Diego. I can help you with that if he is if he is receptive to that idea.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Of course.
Oftentimes, you know, the three of you came together arbitrarily, right? I mean, it just depends on everybody's schedule. So usually, usually, the three presentations are totally different from each other. But you know, it's a happy accident that the two of you can talk same language here. So that's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Cool.
I think we're done. We're what? We're
We're a little bit over.
well, that's par for the course.
It is, unfortunately, par for our course. So really fantastic job, everybody. And we're really proud of you. And we know how much you're balancing this term. And we know that it's an additional, even though it's something you're passionate about, we know it's an additional ask to do all these different components for Capstone. But we're really looking forward to the 25th and the symposium, and just really great job, everybody. Stephen, anything you want to add?
No, just to say, see you all on the 25th. To the extent that you still have some work to do, hopefully that gets accomplished in timely fashion. And we will see you next to your posters. What is it? In 13 days. So until then, see you later. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.